Hey guys, finally I am going to do a reaction video. I'm going to try this and see how it goes. Um, my first reaction video is going to be over Llama Arts called The Playhouse. I'll leave the description down below and let's watch it.
We live on several acres in rural Indiana, USA. Our neighbors aren't too far apart, but we all live on a lot of property. On our properties, we have a lot of trees, and our neighbor doesn't maintain their property well, so a lot of it's overgrown. A couple of fallen trees and a lot of downed branches. We knew the state
Mm-hmm.
of their property was probably because it was an older couple that owned the house and the property was vast. We have a creek separating our homes as well, but a small strip of their property is accessible from our backyard. Due to the overgrowth and trees, we weren't able to see much of their property when we first moved in the summer. And of course, we didn't go onto their land because we didn't want to trespass. One night, my daughter and her friend were camping in the backyard and ran inside.
That's one of the worst things about living on a rural, um, on the countryside because depending on where you stay at, you can have your neighbor can be real close to you, or in my case, the closest neighbor is like 3 or 4 miles away. So there's that.
Swearing that they heard a kid laughing or crying in our backyard. I figured it was their imagination from too many scary stories while in the tent, but went out to investigate briefly just in case. I heard a faint noise coming from just beyond our property line. I moved the flashlight into the general direction and called out to whoever may be in the trees. The sound stopped. I decided it was probably just a couple of stray cats, but just in case, I had the girls set up the tent in the living room. The next day, after taking my daughter's friend home,
Yeah, it smells
curiosity
good.
got the best of me, and I decided to investigate the area by our property line. As I neared the line of trees, I saw a small path I had never noticed before. Since I knew my neighbors were too far and the trees were too thick, they couldn't see me on their property, so I stepped onto the small path. I walked slowly, looking down, watching for poison ivy and fallen branches. I wasn't too far in when I saw a
Mm.
dirty, broken kid's toy on the ground, wrapped in overgrown weeds.
Oh,
I looked up, and in the distance I saw a small, white shed-like structure. As I got closer, there were more and more toys scattered on the ground, some partially buried.
no. No, 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 no. This is where I pack everything and leave or call the police. Hmm? All them toys.
All broken and dirty. Then there was barbed wire, and I could see the front of the shed and realized it was a large playhouse with a wooden alphabet decorating the outside.
Oh.
I was starting to feel uneasy. This playhouse was at least half a mile or more from the only house on the property. I stopped in my tracks, letting my imagination go a little, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I must
Mm.
have jumped a foot off the ground, only to turn around and see that my daughter had followed me. Once my heart slowed down, I decided to get a closer look. There was more broken barbed wire fencing on the ground the closer we got. The window on the side was broken, and there was a hole in the roof. There was a broken train set, one a kid would be able to ride on. The front door had a white piece of wood set to lock someone in, not keep people out. At this point, my daughter was in full panic mode and begging for us to walk back to our house.
Yeah, that would
I
be
had to at
best.
least look through the window, or my mind would wander with all the possibilities of what could be in there.
Why? Why are you so desperate to look inside the house? It's none of your business. Just go back and pretend nothing had happened.
As I was stepping to the side of the shed, my daughter was following close behind. In her fear, she was paying more attention to me than where she was stepping, and she cut her leg pretty deep on some barbed wire that was hidden
Ooh.
in overgrowth.
Ooh, that
I
hurts.
quickly glanced inside the window, only to see a partially dirt floor and broken wood, and a large wooden bench with a dark stain on top. I
Oh.
picked up my daughter, who was determined her leg was going to fall off. We We left the neighbor's property and I took her to the doctor to get a tetanus shot and get her cleaned up. That night after dinner, I let the dog out, but couldn't get her to come
Yeah.
back in. I let her stay outside for a while and checked again a little later. Our dog still wouldn't come in, and I noticed she was standing by the path we took earlier.
That means she's
I
still
grabbed a
outside.
flashlight and her leash and headed out to her. She was pacing, whining, and sniffing around everywhere. I figured it was from the blood earlier, but she never ventured onto the path. Then, I heard the giggling of a little girl. I called out to the child, but there was no answer in return, just some
Mm.
rustling in the leaves. I ran inside
Oh.
with the dog to check on my daughter to make sure that she was still in the house. She was laying in bed, fast asleep. The next morning, I went straight to the playhouse, but as I was approaching, something was wrong. The broken toys seemed to be in different places, and when I got to the playhouse, my heart felt like it was
Oh.
a
Oh
ton
my
of bricks.
gosh.
All
Is
over
that
the
blood?
side of the playhouse were children's drawings in my daughter's blood.
So is your daughter dead? Or is it some witchcraft? That don't make no sense. Okay. Okay, we are back. This is another one from Llama Arts called The Horn-Headed Man. This is scary. Okay, let's see what this is about.
Moonlight peered through my window as I jolted awake. My clamorous breaths disturbed the silence of my dark room. I had just come out of a frightful dream that had me thinking it was all too real. With sweat on my brow,
Why do people sleep with the door open? Like, I wonder if some people sleep comfortable with the door open or closed. I always wonder that. I always sleep with that closed, to be honest.
I sat up and grabbed my water from the nightstand and took a sip from the now warmed glass. My hands shook as I recounted my nightmare of the horn-headed man. In my dream, I was walking through my neighborhood, the streetlights flickering as I made my way down the uninhabited sidewalk. Nothing threatening, just a walk through the midnight hours. A block down, I could see a figure in the distance, walking slowly towards me. His steps seemed mismatched and labored.
Oh.
He passed a few houses looking straight ahead, neither
Oh
looking
my
left
God.
nor right. His head was fixed on the sidewalk in front of him. As I was getting closer to my home, I could see him slowly starting to embark on my territory. I quickly rushed to my front door and hurried inside. Through my
Lock the
window,
door.
I could see him walk past my property. I was thinking to myself, oh God, please have him keep going, please. He was just about to walk all the way past my front
You have
yard.
no blinds on
He
your
stopped.
window?
His body shifted abnormally as he turned to face my home. He just stood there, looking, not moving, just standing there. The man bore the horned head of a skeletal goat. His body was pale and looked fragile, and his fingers were thin and bony. I thought to myself, what does he want? Slowly, he started lifting a quivering arm and pointed right at me.
Oh.
I started to backpedal into the darkness of my house, when all of a sudden he let out an inhuman screech. That's when I woke up.
Oh gosh.
Too frightened to go back to bed, I turned on the television and saw that the local news for early risers was on. My stomach dropped, and my body suddenly turned cold as I listened to the current news report. The news anchor on the television said, breaking news. A woman who lived on Columbia Avenue has been murdered. Local officials say that they received an anonymous phone call from the victim's home. We arrived at the house
Oh my.
around 12:20.
Whew.
We saw the victim inside and a card which rested next to her. The sheriff held up the card. On the back of it, I could could see the image of the horn-headed man.
Ooh.
The officer started to read. One down. Slowly I go. He then lifted his head back up. His blood started trickling from his eyes.
Ow.
I sat there shaking, and I couldn't breathe. Columbia's just 3 blocks away from me. I jumped out of my bed.
Okay. Okay, so it's early in the morning and you watching my blood. So is he hallucinating? Or did that really happen? Either way, I would run out the door. No. I would lock the windows, the doors, everything. And grab a gun or something. I hope he has a gun.
And ran to my window. Something within me made me want to look outside. That's when I saw him.
Ooh.
He just stood there, looking, not moving, just looking. A horn-headed man, his body pale and fragile, and his fingers thin and bony.
That's it. Oh my gosh. Oh. I'd have to call the police. But anyway, this is my first reaction video. I may do more of these. I know I'm going to do Martin Walls. I know I'm going to do one of him. But other than that, if you guys like the video, please push the like button. If you like the channel, please subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Okay, bye-bye.